Most people still think Bitcoin is risky, confusing, or fake money. But what if your advisor is wrong and ignoring it is actually what's costing you? We'll show you exactly what it is and isn't and break it down for you in this video.
So Eric, we are talking about Bitcoin and specifically how to describe Bitcoin to somebody that doesn't understand, somebody that might have maybe heard about it from their kids and thinks about it as monopoly money. How would you describe it?
Great question. Think of it as Bitcoin is the next iteration of what money is designed to look like. Another way to frame it is looking at the progression of money over time. Or think of the exchange of value. So we started with the barter system. Think of you having fish and me having wheat and us saying we want each other's commodity, but that only goes so far. From there we had commodities, so that might be having silver and gold and things of that nature. And then we went to fiat, right? Fiat is going to be like the dollar bill that we have it now, or what maybe was even issued by kings maybe hundreds and even thousands of years ago.
What is wrong with fiat? Because fiat's been working for a pretty long time. I mean, we have the dollar here. It's a very stable currency. People trust the US government, right, in general. What's wrong with fiat? Why not just continue to use fiat?
Some would argue that it's inflation.
Okay.
Some would argue that there's the constant money printer that's been on, the spigot that's been on in many countries, including ours in the US, that creates a little bit of a devaluation impact. And we've seen that to extreme in many second and even third world type of countries.
And I'm glad you brought that up. So just for those of you that are watching that aren't aware of this, but in other countries, governments have essentially used like the printing press to just enrich themselves at the expense of everybody else. Mm-hmm. In the US, we don't really have that, but we have done a lot of money printing. And there's actually a great US debt clock, I think, that you can go to usdebtclock.org and see how much money we had in 2020 and how much we have today. There is something to this that the governments do print money. They print it all over the world, and essentially they enrich themselves at our expense. Mm-hmm. So continue. So how does crypto solve for that problem, right? What is this next version of money doing that fiat can't do?
Think of it as it's connecting people from all walks of life, all aspects of society in a way that wasn't designed before. So if you look on any corner here in the US, you typically cross some form of national bank or credit union, but that's something that we sort of take for granted. If you look overseas, you could be in certain areas of Europe or Asia or Africa where, depending on where you live, you might not even have the ability to be banked in any form. So having the ability to have access to something that's digitized, like your phone, which phones are very much accessible around the world. Having that phone, in essence, allows anyone in the world to be banked and be a part of society, and then also in a way transact. So if you think beyond the hundreds of millions of people here, but to the tune of many billions around the world, that is remarkable.
And so let's say I'm somebody in one of those countries where maybe I'm very far away from a local bank, or I don't have access to money, or I don't even trust the government, from the standpoint that I think that money is worthless. You know, it starts out worth something at the beginning of the month, and end of the month it could be worth a lot less. How do I use Bitcoin, and how does it change things for me?
You use it in a way where, just like we have become understanding of having credit cards and debit cards and in essence electronic money, this is that next iteration to where I can have access to it on my phone or some form of device, if we're looking at it for transactional purposes, and I can have it pushed out to not just the penny or to the the tenths or the hundredths place, but being able to have it 0.000000, it's magnified. So I could have fractional amounts that I can actually send to others around the world.
And if I live, let's say, in another country, like I'm in Brazil and I have reals, right? I can convert my reals into Bitcoin.
Simply.
Okay. I know a lot of places around the world right now try to convert into dollars, but there's a problem with that. There aren't always dollars. The government sometimes restricts the flow of dollars. Can any government in the world restrict the flow of Bitcoin?
They can't, which is why over the years that's been the most dominating factor to a degree. It's not having any centralized authority, and that makes centralized governments a little bit uncomfortable. This is also, in a way, unique from the standpoint of Bitcoin is capped. There's 21 million in its overall supply. If you think of that for a moment, and we're comparing it to, let's say...
That's not a lot. 21 million, right? Like, there's trillions of dollars, right?
But if you think of the fractional nature of this, it's magnified beyond what anyone, I think, really fathoms.
If I were to own a Bitcoin today, how many dollars is that today?
Like, let's say 130,000, yeah.
So 130,000, that's a lot, right? I may not be able to afford one Bitcoin, but if I can buy a fraction of it, like 1/1000th of a Bitcoin.
I could buy $1 of it if I wanted to right now.
When I put my money in Bitcoin, now I've noticed Bitcoin is not stable itself, right? It's quite volatile. I mean, it moves a lot, right? So, and I guess I'm looking at it from the perspective of the dollar, right? Like it might be 1 week worth 130,000 like it is right now. Several weeks ago, I remember it was under 100,000, right? So how do I transact with a cryptocurrency that is that unstable? Because that sounds to me just like Venezuela's currency, no offense.
There's different ways to look at Bitcoin. Some are using it for transactional purposes. Others are using it for an aspect of their portfolio, which is a whole different mechanism. I would say that is getting a lot more of excitement, especially when we look at our US market. It's an alternative investment. It's something that's an ancillary sleeve of a portfolio to diversify. That's a whole different arena though.
Kind of like gold, maybe?
Kind of like gold. Where it's similar and different is think of gold as having a limited supply, but if you think of Bitcoin, we know definitively what that supply is.
It's finite. There's only 21 minutes.
21 in it. So when you have something that's finite, then you start to think of like supply-demand dynamics. If your overall supply is capped and you know what that is, oh my gosh, demand potential can really accelerate prices. This is why you've seen it go from being hundreds of dollars to thousands to now over 100,000 that no one many years ago, even some of the biggest universities, could never have fathomed this going over 100. Now we've accelerated past that, and expectations are even higher now that we have institutional adoption.
So I'm almost thinking of it like a store of value, but I'm also thinking of it as a rare, scarce thing. Right?
Yes, absolutely.
So I think of scarcity, I think of artwork as scarce, right? There's only one Mona Lisa painting, right? Even though the fluctuation of the Mona Lisa painting might fluctuate with however many art buyers there are in the market and how rich they are, there's still only one Mona Lisa painting. As long as there's one painting and there's more and more art buyers over time, that painting should go up in value. Is that essentially the investment thesis with Bitcoin?
Best way to look at it. I love that.
Okay. So for many of the people that are watching this channel, they've got money in the market, but many of them probably have talked to their financial advisor, and their financial advisors really poo-pooed the idea of, hey, like Bitcoin's monopoly money, there's nothing there. It's just all fluff. Like I now understand a little bit more about like how you see it, but what should they be thinking about? And like, what are they missing if they don't embrace this or at least incorporate it into their portfolio?
It is the next iteration of money design and the evolutionary underpinnings of what crypto is built off of, like Bitcoin, built on blockchain technology, is the future of industries. And if you think of that concept, that's mind-blowing. You think of the curve that I saw a while back where it showed all these different inventions that have happened over the last 100+ years. You think of like the internet, you think of the automotive, you think of the television, all of these things that we at times take for granted. Artificial intelligence is the biggest buzz even more recently outside of crypto.
Yeah.
That is how excited I get about it. It's the next iteration of what the internet could look like, what money can look like in some form, and also for us as portfolio managers, right? We want to diversify. It allows us to bring in assets that actually act very differently from others, which for portfolio management, everybody, that is quite exciting. Small pieces of certain assets that act a certain way that is different from other assets could not only have the ability to magnify performance, but also ironically reduce risk, even though you might see something like Bitcoin moving a lot or having a lot of variability. The reality is most advisors have lack of knowledge, lack of expertise, and the natural inclination is to lean on, I will just not talk about it. That has been a foolish way to approach it. It's better to be more open-minded to this, and that has served us well as professionals. It's served our clients extremely well as clients.
It may also be lack of access. Do a lot of brokerage firms have access to direct cryptocurrency investments? Where can you get these?
Majority actually should at this point, so there's no excuse. But
Interesting.
for the most part, if an advisor wants to be able to have access to this, they have the means to do it.
The SEC has basically said, hey, these things have passed regulatory muster and now they're on the market. There's 10 Bitcoin ETFs, 10 Ethereum ETFs at this point. So
There's a bunch.
So really they're on every platform. So for this video, there you have it. That's essentially the argument for why this is something you should pay attention to. And we'll see you next time.